Good morning and welcome to our Good Friday service. We're glad that you are sharing your Good Friday with us. And we've come to the time in the message. And I've entitled the message, Sermon in Silence. I think every pastor has had somebody say, I come to church to be fed. Or I don't think I got anything out of the service. Or anything out of their message. And I got to tell you honestly, that's sometimes disheartening when you hear that, even though it doesn't happen on a regular basis. But there are times when you hear those words. And I always ask the question, first of all, what do you mean that you didn't feel you were fed? And what is it you are being fed for? When they're asked this question, sometimes there is this silence because they haven't really thought about it. And the question I always ask is, did God speak to you in this sermon? Or did God speak to you in the service? You see, sometimes in our world, there is so much noise, so many things to distract us, to lead us off course. Sometimes we just don't hear God. Now, we began with Lent, and it's in the wilderness. And from there, we move slowly in Lent to the cross in Jerusalem. I don't know if any of you have ever been in a physical wilderness, but I think many of us have been in spiritual wildernesses at different times. And it is often a time when things seem silent. For the people of Israel, before Jesus came and after the prophets, there was this time of silence. It was like a vacuum. Nobody seemed to hear the voice of God. In truth, we find silence awkward. Reality hates a vacuum. We struggle with it. We want to fill the silence. Silence makes us very uneasy. In radio or TV, they call it dead air. And it is time that needs to be filled. When Jesus stood before Pilate, and Pilate demanded of Jesus to defend himself, Jesus said nothing. He was silent. There was a great gap in the proceedings, and it's Pilate who feels the awkwardness of the silence, and he feels it by asking, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Pilate finds that silence an awkward time. It was interesting because it's supposed to be Jesus that's on trial, but in many ways, Pilate has put himself on trial. And Jesus, in his silence, reveals so much about those around him. As Pilate was uncomfortable before a man who is about to be condemned to be crucified. And Jesus doesn't beg for his life. He is silent before Pilate. He's silent before the crowd who calls for him to be crucified. You know, for most of us, it's hard to sit in silence. When somebody is sick or somebody is dying or somebody has passed away and we go and we're with people, that silence seems so deafening, so loud, so awkward, and we grasp for words to fill it. But the truth of the matter is, it takes courage sometimes to sit in silence and simply be present. We live in a world where there is so much noise, so many distractions. We come to this day, Good Friday. Why is it called Good Friday? I mean, I remember as a child visiting my grandmother who lived out in the country. And of course, I grew up in the city. In the city, there was always street lights. So even when it was dark, you still could see quite a bit. But out in the country, there are no lights, no street lights. And it can be dark and you can't see 2 feet in front of you sometimes. And I remember my grandmother saying to me, and it happened to be on a Good Friday, and she said, "Don't worry, nothing will happen to you because it's Good Friday." And that was the first time in my life I began to reflect, why is it called Good Friday? I mean, Jesus has been betrayed. He has been arrested. He's been tossed around between Pilate and the chief priests. He's not only arrested, he is condemned to be crucified. He gets beaten, he gets whipped, and then his nails driven through his hands and his feet, placed on a cross to die. If you don't know, the death on a cross was one of the most horrific ways to die. In fact, a Roman citizen was not allowed to be crucified. Jesus is arrested. His accusers, they're not silent. But God seems silent. Where's God when Jesus is arrested? Where is God when he is taken to the high priests who are supposed to be men of God? Where's God when Jesus is before Pilate? Or when Jesus is whipped and beaten? Or when Jesus is nailed to the cross? Where's God when Jesus dies on the cross? Where's God when Jesus is laid in the tomb? Is God silent? It's hard to see God working in these events. It's hard to see the victory in Jesus. What is so good about Friday? The rich and the powerful in Jewish society and in Rome seem to have won. Has the empire and greed and evil destroyed Jesus and the kingdom? In Psalm 22:2, we hear these words, "Oh my God, I cry in the daytime, but you do not answer. By night as well, and I find no rest." Many of the Psalms of lament are Psalms that recognize that it seems as if God is silent. How are we to make sense of all that has transpired? Can the powerful do anything? Why would God be silent? Is this a story of suffering and loss and that's it? It's a day when it feels like your heart can't break any more than it already has. For the followers of Jesus, it was a pain that they thought would never go away. It's a day when their world came to an end, where hope that they had in Jesus was crucified. A day when hope seemed to die. If our story ended here, then all of this would be true. But guess what? Our story doesn't end here. God is working in the silence. It's Friday, but Sunday is coming. It is silent, but God is breaking through. It is silent, and death seems to win, but Sunday is coming. It's silent, and hope seems to have lost, but Sunday's coming. It's silent, but God's love and life cannot be conquered. The grave is not the final word. It is silent, and Jesus is on the cross. It is silent, and Jesus is in the tomb. It's silent, but Sunday's coming. It is Sunday that makes Friday good. You see, the powerful did not have the last word. Evil did not win. Death did not conquer life. The grave and tomb could not hold God's love. It's Friday, but Sunday is coming. Let us hear that great hymn, "Were you there when they crucified my Lord?"